Got an old sewing machine that doesn't work? We're going to show you how to saw it in half, and that's no magic trick.
Color outside the lines.
Here's our vintage sewing machine all prepped and ready to go. We've got a level line on the tape, on the painter's tape right here. First order of business is to loosen the bolts on the underside of the sewing machine, and for that we're using this impact driver. This isn't to be confused with a screwdriver. This is actually a specialized hand tool that loosens the bolt as you strike it. I just want to mention that this is a practice run. You'll see the actual machine we're working on a little later in this video.
You can see our marks moved.
Let's have a look.
So it's turning. You can see these ones. They're turning. As we put our little marks there, we can see how loose they are. There we go. Look at that.
Coming right off.
Never been off since the factory put them together.
Boy, these things were made to last, eh?
There. So 1, 2, 3. So there's nothing else holding it together, but all this paint is holding it together here, so we don't damage it. Let's see if it'll come loose.
Wow, awesome.
Now it has a big plug in the bottom. Didn't know that was there. Don't know if that comes out or not. Might have to cut it off if you want it flat. Or you could use it, if you're putting this on a piece of wood, you could drill a hole there and it's going to hold it steady.
Yeah, so that's that one. That's a larger one.
Now we have two things on this. We have to get this shaft out. There's a bolt here that's stuck. I have to get loosened to pull the shaft out.
Now what model is this one?
This is a 99, an early version.
Okay, so this is a smaller one than the one we just did here.
Yeah.
It'll be more appropriate for a bookshelf size.
We're going to loosen these 3 screws a little bit now before we try and cut this apart. And then we have to get this shaft out of here.
So it's the same process as we just showed you with loosening up the bolts on the bottom. But then we're going to tighten them up again so that we can still cut through it and use that as our base. So we're trying to get the shaft out now, and we're just using a pair of vice grips to loosen it. Every machine's a little different.
There's a screw that's holding that piece on. Don't know if it's going to come off now or not.
Now this shaft is what holds the hand wheel on the other side. Right there.
I'm going to try and hold it from this side. Spin the front.
I'll save you the trouble of watching this entire part just to let you know that this didn't work and that we put this on hold. This time we're going to loosen the bolts underneath, and so we've got it upside down on this table here. We're going to clamp it, and then we'll be able to get better leverage. What we've done is that we put silver marker on either side of the screws just to see if they're moving at all, and that way you can tell if anything has shifted after you've given it a few whacks or so.
Wow, look at that. It's already moved, so it's loosened. Those used to be lined up, it's starting to shift.
Cool.
So, yep, beautiful. One down. Next.
Now proceed with the other 2 and they'll come right off. I just want to mention that the other alternative to this is to actually drill the bolts out, but that's a really messy proposition. You get metal shavings everywhere. So this is, I think, the best method for us. All you need is a little patience, a little brute strength, and it's far less messy than the alternative. You might have to put penetrating oil on that one too.
Yep, let's rather get going now. There, we got it.
Awesome.
Okay, look at these. All 3 have shifted. 1, 2, 3. So, that's all we wanted to do for now.
So we're all set up and ready to go. We just have a plastic bag over the bottom here to catch the metal shavings. Got a covering on our table, and this is the hacksaw that we're going to be using.
Brand new lathe.
So we're going to start straight.
And our hole is right at the front here, so we're going to start on this side of the line. And try and follow this line.
Yeah, just straight down.
It'll probably take about a half hour at hacksawing. In the end, we may have to take a little grinder and, you know, even this out, depending.
How's it going? Tiring, eh?
Yeah.
So when you get too tired, just take a break, step back for a moment, and then get back to it. Now don't forget, we have to go through the center portion here, so
Go through the shaft. We're
that's
not
going to
sure
be
what's gonna
difficult.
happen. In other machines, I can get the center out. This one doesn't seem to want to bite.
As you can see, we've got all the metal shavings down here. You want to do this on a calm day with no wind.
So our big problem was trying to cut through this shaft that was in the middle, and you can see after 10 minutes we did almost nothing. It's hardened steel as opposed to this cast, which is soft. We undid a little tiny screw here, which was holding this in the front of the machine.
A little set screw.
Little set screw, and then once that was loose, we were able to take this punch from the back and tap on this, and this whole piece popped out. This bushing came out and the whole shaft was in there, and the whole thing slid out by tapping that. But that little screw had to come out first in here.
So hopefully it'll be a lot easier to cut through the rest
Will it?
of this.
I think I've worn this blade out on that piece of metal, so we're going to switch the blade. I have one more new one, and to switch that out, actually it's not brand new. It's not new either, but it looks in better shape.
It probably is, because it wasn't against the hardened steel.
Typically you can see how much paint is missing, and that one seems to be the best. The teeth seem sharper.
Give it a try.
So you loosen this off. It's just held on by a little bent pin on either end. So you slide this onto here, slide it onto there. Oops, it's a little tricky.
With a new blade and the metal shaft removed, it goes a lot faster.
Almost there. By having this clamped, when we get near the end, I'm not holding this with a lot of force to keep it still. I'll just be holding this so it doesn't fall. So look at
Awesome.
that. We still have to take the bottom off, so we're just going to give this a wipe. Anyway, see how easy these come out now? That was inside the machine. I'm going to hold this up. Same as before. We have to loosen this still.
So this is where we're going to stop and then clean the area off and finally get around to tapping the base off. Okay, now we're going to try to knock the bottom off. All the screws are taken off. Let's just make sure.
1, 2, 3
1, 2,
screws,
3.
that's it. Hold this, get a nice warm big glove on. See, it's loose. It's about to come out.
One more tap should do it. There we go.
Oh, and this one does not have any kind of a pin in the bottom, so it can be, you could screw right
that's
through
great.
something into any of these threaded holes. Nice paperweight. Do whatever you want with it.
Beautiful. So we're all done. We've got 1, 2, 3 pieces.
So these are your two main pieces. They look like that. Your base. I don't know. Be creative. You can make this into something. Actually has the holes in the back. You put the little hinges on for a table, a sewing table, and it moves up and down. If you wanted to make it into something.
We'll figure something out for it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we've got our 2 ends for our bookends, and we've got something a little bit funky planned for that. As you can see, we got a really nice clean cut with the exception of just this little bit at the bottom here. So we're just going to take a Dremel to that and just clean that up a little bit.
We're going to try this little grinding wheel and see if we can just smooth out this little bit of metal here. The rest of it, you won't really see this, but that's proud, and we don't want it to be in the way. Let's see if this works. Oh, let's plug it in. I always unplug it to put the bit on.
So that's what we're grinding. I'm just going to stand back. Once your pieces are cut, you'll also have to go ahead and cut down what was a really long shaft. So this is 1/2 of it, and this goes into this section here. So we're just going to insert it. Now we're going to finish assembling the flywheel in just a moment, but first what we have to do is we have to give it a surface area, a piece of wood in the center here, so that you're able to screw your sewing machine halves onto your bookends. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some tape and I'll just place it over as so. Now I can go ahead and either trace along this interior section here, or I can get an X-Acto knife and cut it. Then you're going to have a sticky piece of tape that you can essentially put down onto a piece of wood and cut out with a jigsaw or a scroll saw. So a pencil will do. You can just put the lead and just do a rubbing like so, or you can just use an X-Acto blade to cut it right on site. And that will tend to be faster. So I don't really have to do this because I've already gone ahead and done that. And I've got my two pieces right here. And then essentially what you're going to do is just insert them, give them a tap. And I have seen online where some people soak it to swell it up so that it's a good tight fit. But if you already have a tight fit, there's really no reason to do that. I'm just going to give that a tap and that'll be in and ready to go. And then essentially we're going to screw that into our bookends. To secure it permanently, you can use some clear caulking, and if there's any excess, just wipe it right away. Once your shaft is cut shorter, you just reinsert it back where it goes, and you can start reassembling. And we suggest that you take really good photos of just how you disassembled it so that you're able to put it back together. So I'm just going to put this on so that I can put the hand wheel back. I've got a set screw here. I'll just get that started by hand, and then I can screw that in with a screwdriver just to tighten. And here we go. We'll just tighten that up. That should be on there good and tight. Now we can put our hand wheel back on. That just slips right over. And then there's a piece that just screws right in to hold it on. And there you go, that part's done. So I'm going to finish assembling the rest of the machine, like both halves, and then we'll be ready for our bookends. So here's my bookend, and it's basically just a piece of sheet metal that we've bent to 90 degrees. And what we're going to end up doing is, I'm not even sure if these are the books we're using, but let me just show you how it works. We're just going to slide the cover on there. And then we're going to open up our next book here and slide that on. That'll line right up. Then once we assemble both halves, we're going to add them on and screw them in. Now I do want to point out that with this smaller, shorter 3/4 machine, when we put this up against the edge of the book, we do have a gap. So I've got a fix for that. I'm just tracing the foam ball here because I'm going to cut it. So just take the pencil all the way around. I'm going to go cut that, and then we're going to end up with a slice that's the thickness of the gap that you see here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cover it and make it into a pincushion. So here's the piece of foam whittled down to the shape that I want it, and I'm just going to take some of this stuffing, wrap it around, and then grab some fabric and cover it. Here's the piece of fabric I'm going to wrap it with, and I think it goes really pretty with this particular book. So we'll just take it and wrap it right around. And then I'm just going to fold the seam as so. So what I've done here is I've got a running stitch. So let's just take a moment to gather a few of these threads here. And that way it'll gather nicely for you when you wrap it around. Once you've got it all smoothed around the form, you can take some glue here and just squeeze it in. And then once that's in, just pin it beyond where the glue is. Give it a bit of a squeeze. And continue over to the other side and do the same thing. Make sure your stuffing is out of the way. Give a squeeze of glue. And just pin beyond where you've got the glue there. Now you can do this with a glue gun too, but I think it might melt the styrofoam. So I'm just going to be patient and go around it and just make sure it's tacked down. Now what I'm also going to do is just put a piece of tape where I started, so I know that I've already got glue there. So again, I'm going to finish this off camera, and then our little pin cushion is going to be ready to go. So we have a working model Singer here that we're going to be following to reattach everything to the one that we cut. And these are all the parts that were part of this machine. Look at them all. So this is the piece that slides up and down for the needle.
This goes on here. Once we get this assembly put together, that screw is going to be done up. So we're going to put this into here again. You're going to do up that little screw. That'll do it up. There we go. Now this spins. That's how this machine would work. Now we have that little set screw up here lined up with this hole.
Right now we're working on the needle assembly, and we've got this little bar in place that raises and lowers it. We've got our shaft in place, and this is what the inside of the machine should look like, and we're going to follow this to put it back together. Here's an interesting fact about this part that goes onto the needle assembly.
So I can show you on this one. This one that's in here. Yep. If they were screwed the way a regular screw goes to the right to tighten, they would loosen as this machine spins and runs. So in order to make sure that doesn't happen, these are opposite threads. So you actually turn it to the right to loosen, and to the left to tighten. Also, these are a curved little slot in there. So we took a regular little bit and we ground it rounded so that it fits in there better. You can get away with a flathead, but it won't fit in properly.
Awesome.
So if you see on this sample here, if I try and put this screw back on and I turn it as if I'm loosening it,
it's going to tighten.
It tightens. So to take it off, you actually turn it to the right.
Now this is just a spare part because we lost one of the parts here, so...
Or misplaced it. So we're taking this part off of here. So this is the little arm that holds the needle bar. So this goes in here. This is where the needle bar is going to run through. This piece goes onto here. This little flat has to line up with this little set screw. We're going to slide that into there. We're going to line this flat part up with that screw just by eyeball. We're going to push it in. We're going to reach in the side, and we're going to do up this set screw. There. Now that's attached on, and this is moving. Now we can slide somehow. Just line it up properly. Okay, now I'm just putting that temporary into there. This piece here, this arm where your thread comes through goes to this side. This piece goes onto here, and that lines up there. So now we have that set screw to put in, and that one. This one is clockwise to tighten like a regular screw. It's this one that's opposite. Some of the later models, this was the opposite.
Lots to keep track of.
Yeah, they made this model for many years. This is where I'm using my little bit that's rounded to fit this end of this screw, and we're going to go the opposite way on this one. There we go.
Wow, cool. So does that finish the needle bar assembly?
Well, no, now we have to run our needle. Have to line this up. And now the needle has a flat spot on the back, and where this hooks on, this little set screw that runs through here has to hit that flat spot to hold the needle straight up and down so the needle's in the right directions. And this we do up from the hole. If you can look back in here, there's a little hole there. Once we put this on, we have to line up this screw with that hole and get a screwdriver from the back to do it up onto here. So this is gonna, so that's gonna go into there. The flat is now on the back side. It's gonna run into here. It's a little bit stiff to put in. Oh, I had that screw in too far, so it wouldn't go in. So we're gonna back that off. this in here. Now if yours is a real sewing machine, you'd be oiling all these parts as you put them in to make sure they move and clean them a little bit better than this. Okay, so that's in there, and it's just poking out the top of that a little bit there, where it would normally be. So now we're going to turn this over. We actually have to spin this till we get that all the way down to there, if we want to put it in properly. It may be hard to do because we don't have a whole shaft to turn. It's pretty stiff, but there, we can do it by hand. There, so now the screw in the back of this is lined up with this hole right here. You can see it right there.
Yep, you can see
So
it.
now we're just going to take a screwdriver. This is lined up straight the way it should be. There should be a flat spot back there. We're going to do this screw up. There. Now we have that working. It's a little bit stiff because these parts haven't been, cleaned properly.
Yeah, but this is just for
But
show.
that's how your machine would run. And this
Awesome.
would go in circles. The motor would spin this whole shaft. This spins. Your needle bar goes up and down.
Are we ready to put that pretty plate back on?
Now, no, the next thing we have to do, and now you need your presser foot bar that your sewing foot goes on, which is in here. Lots more parts. So we put this back on here. This is what raises your presser bar. We have this little part is what this presses on, this handle, to raise your presser foot. So that goes in here first. There's a little slot in the side. Oh, it'll be tight, but we'll put that in there. It has to line up. There's a hole here, a hole in here, and a hole in here. This presser bar, it goes in this direction, so your foot can be attached on. It's going to slide up through that hole, through this hole, through that hole. That's your presser bar. Your foot goes on the bottom here.
Now what holds that on?
Now, this little unit goes on here. This slides up and down.
I'm just going to show them on this machine here.
Okay. Oh, here it is.
So
here.
that's the part that we're looking at right here.
So now we have to have that screw and that screw. So this little piece here is actually what's going to clamp the needle bar, so you could set it the right height when you're setting up your sewing machine. You can see that it moves up and down from this clamp. For now, we're just going to add this piece on, put the screw in, and tighten it. We can adjust the height later by loosening that screw again. And that's how you set the height of your foot on a sewing machine, through this screw on this model. So there we go. So now, this is what brings this up and down. Once the spring's in, see, you can raise and lower your presser foot.
Okay.
So what we have to do now, we have to take this spring and this little bar and put them together. The spring fits right into this presser bar, see?
Yep.
Fits into there. Then, it's the little screw. Oh, here it is. Okay.
That's the part we're looking for.
So, this is the part we need. This goes on here, and that screws in. It puts pressure on this. So now this needle bar, this presser bar for your foot comes up and down, and the spring pushes it back down. So when you're sewing, you lift it, and you let it go, and your foot comes back down.
So what's next?
You would have your plate at the bottom, your needle goes through. You have your foot, and you have a little foot goes on there. Knurled thumb nut holds your foot on. There you go.
And then how do you actually put the needle in?
Now, to put the needle in, we have this piece here that holds the needle. This is going to go onto here. And now, that just stays on once you start it. When you want to sew, you simply loosen this and slide your needle up into this slot here, and then do this up, and that holds your needle. So this would go below the needle, like that, and your feed dogs come up through here, and they move back and forth to move the material. We're going to put the tension assembly back together. This is how you set the tension on your sewing machine with this. So we're going to put this back into here. This already has the spring on it, the tension spring that goes up and down, the tension on your thread. This goes into here. Now there's a little set screw. It's going into the back there, and it's going to hold that in place. So we're going to go like this. Spin this in here. Hard to get it started. Okay, now that's in place. The next thing we're going to do is this a little pin, and when you raise your... We didn't put the assembly back in there to raise this up and to move this in and out, but normally when you lift this up, it pushes on this pin, and it releases the tension on your, but we'll put that back in place, and then we're going to put this plate goes on here.
So that's what we're working on right here.
You got your two tension discs that go here, like that. And this wraps around the outside of it. Then we put this on. And the spring. And a little knurled nut. And there's your tension. The more you tighten this, the tighter these plates go, and it puts more pressure on your thread. And normally you would lift this up and it would push on that pin and release the tension on here, so you can pull your thread out, but we didn't put all that mechanism back in.
So now are we ready for the pretty plate?
Now we're ready for the pretty plate. Do you want to polish it, or are we just going to
Yeah.
put it on for now?
So this is the pretty plate we're going to put on?
We're going to polish it, but we'll show you. It goes on here like this, and there are two small screws, one at the top and one at the bottom.
So I want to polish this first, so let's go do that.
These ones aren't quilted. It's nice to buy the quilted ones. They don't shed as much. This is autosol metal polish, safe on almost any metal. You simply put some onto here. Don't need a lot. And you just rub it over the whole surface. I like to put some on the whole surface to start with. Let it start working a little bit. I do that. And then I actually like to do the inside too. This not only polishes, but it leaves a microscopic coating on your metal, which will help resist future corrosion. I just put it on there with that, and then I can see already it's getting dirty. Take a clean one, and now you're gonna put a little pressure on it, and you're gonna scrub.
So you're just buffing it off?
Just buffing it off. You can see.
Oh wow, lots of corrosion.
It's really coming up. Before you do this, you might want to clean your part, and you could use Dawn dish soap and water. You could use some alcohol if you want. I'm gonna grab another one. You go through a lot of these, so buy a big pack of these at your local dollar store, or look at that.
No, you haven't even put any more on, you're just
sheen.
buffing it off.
I'm just taking off the old. You can see the difference from there to there already.
Oh my gosh, it is a huge difference.
You're taking all the oxidation off of the metal, and you're leaving the microscopic film to protect it.
Wow, I honestly didn't think it was that oxidated when I looked at it, but
No, it looked
you
beautiful,
can really
but-
see the difference.
There's such a pattern to this that's why I'm going in circles, to try and get down into all these little holes. So that if you clean this ahead of time in Dawn dish soap or with some alcohol, you're trying to lift any of that dirt out of these little.
Now, could you also put it
crevices.
in the ultrasonic cleaner?
Yeah, I have an ultrasonic cleaner. That's the best way. That's really, really, really good way to pull all the dirt out of these pores, but we didn't. That's a blog for another day.
How much more is it pulling off? Wow.
That's it. And then if you want, you can always take a Q-tip if you have any little corners you want to get into, or around little objects.
Yeah.
You can clean around there, where it's hard to get to, into your holes a little bit there. There you
Beautiful.
go. Now I'll show you another plate we have. This is from a later singer. This one, in this case, if I was polishing that, I would go straight up and down with these lines, like that as I polish. But because of all the decoration on this, I went in circles to try and pull it out.
Beautiful.
So there you
So,
go.
I'm going to get that on. I'm going to sign off for now, and we'll be back with the reveal. For more upcycle ideas, be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for upcoming projects.